Hey guys, it's VT, and I'm going to try and keep this short for you guys. Yesterday, we got an announcement for Falcon, a new hero in Marvel Champions, the first Avenger in years. I'm very, very excited. He looks very cool. So cool that his deep dive that I've been working on for this channel, it's taking forever. I've just about got it ready to record, but there's so much going on. I thought, why not talk about one of the new cards in his precon, Strength and Diversity, in its own video? Because then I can incorporate a lot more other heroes in a way that makes a lot more sense. And let me tell you, I'm excited about Strength and Diversity. So to focus on this card, it's a 2 cost per player event. It has the Alliance keyword, which means any player at the table can help pay toward it. So in free player, 2 cost per person, it's going to cost 6 resources total. You could each pay 2 resources, or one player could pay all 6, and then you get the hero action. And that is, for each different trait on friendly characters in play, choose either remove 1 threat from a scheme, or deal 1 damage to an enemy. And this is a little bit absurd, and to add on top of this, we have a wild resource icon on the bottom left. Leadership already has more wild resources than any other aspect, and now it has 3 more. You can put 3 copies of Strength and Diversity in your deck. I don't know why Leadership gets so many. It's a little bit of a case of, Mom, Leadership's doing leadership things again. I don't know why it has it, but hey, it's going to be very good for some of the heroes we're going to look at, and just good in general. Let's give you a practical example of why this card is so good. There are many, many, many heroes in this game which have 2 traits on their hero side, and as a hero action, that's going to be particularly helpful for us. We're just going to go with a solo play example, where this is effectively a 2-cost event. Let's have a look at Venom. He has a Guardian and Space Knight trait. Finally, the Space Knight trait is going to be useful. Now, if Venom plays 3 allies, and for argument's sake, I'm just going to say Grant Ward, Blade, and Vivian, he has a lot of traits, because Grant Ward and Blade each have 2 different traits, and Vivian has 3. There's absolutely no overlap, nor is there any overlap with Venom's traits. In total, for this 0 cost, 1 cost, and 2 cost ally, we have 9 traits in play, including our hero traits again. So Strength and Diversity becomes a 2 cost card to deal 9 damage, or a 2 cost card to remove 9 threat, or hey, it could be a 2 cost card to deal 6 damage and remove 3 threat. However you want. You can split that threat removal and damage between various different minions, villain, side scheme, main scheme. It's supremely flexible. And you guys might be thinking, oh, but you had to set up 3 allies for this. Yes, but it can still be good with 1 or 2 allies depending on the character, and there are way more than 3 allies, which are actually good for Strength and Diversity from a solo perspective when you're trying to build up all the traits yourself. So your deck can be full of plenty of different options to kind of reliably get Strength and Diversity into a really good place. For Justice is a 2-cost event which removes 4 threat, so if I've got 2 traits on my hero, all I need to do is play 1 ally with 2 traits, and Strength and Diversity, in the worst case scenario, is a really flexible for Justice that doesn't require a mental resource to get the full value. Now, before we dig deeper into all the allies that are really good for this, I just want to talk about how Strength and Diversity really reminds me of Gunboat Diplomacy or All Points Bulletin. These events are both reliant on you having the correct thing on the board to get the correct numbers ready for your, main card, in this case, Strength and Diversity that we're talking about today. And they can kind of split threat removal and damage in really convenient, super easy ways. So to get Strength and Diversity to a good place, we've got Grant Ward, who we already talked about, but he's 0 cost, gives you shield and spy traits. Or we have Slingshot, who, okay, is 3 cost, but the action actually lets us get her into play for 1 energy, and although she'll come back to our hand, we can repeat that as necessary. So both of these cards are super convenient, super low commitment, super easy to play, and I'm going to boost Strength and Diversity up by 2. They share the same trait, so you're not going to get that boost of Strength and Diversity if you have both in play, but they are really good options to include in a Strength and Diversity deck. Then we have Blade, a 1-cost ally who will give us the Avenger and Vampire trait. Super good, already a really good ally. And we've got Ironheart, only 1 trait, but because she draws you a card, her 2 cost could effectively be thought of as a 1 cost. She kind of refunds part of the cost when you play her. So Champion, not a very common trait, pretty useful for a Strength and Diversity deck. As we move on to 2 costs, there are a couple of good examples. Kid Omega and Vivian being my favorite. Vivian, so good with 3 different traits on, very rare. And Kid Omega with Sonic and X-Men. If you just played Kid Omega and Vivian and had 2 traits on your hero, Strength and Diversity is, dealing 7 damage or removing 7 threat, or it's, some kind of combination. Extremely, extremely good. As we move up to 3 cost or 4 cost cards, there's a whole plethora of them with at least 2 traits that are pretty good to play. And honestly, once you've got what I think are, those best few in already, I think you just kind of mix and match with what allies work good for your deck that ideally have 2 traits. And then Strength and Diversity kind of just destroys everything. It's really good. So I've already given an example of Venom with Strength and Diversity, just as kind of a random pick with 2 traits on him. But I still think this is good. With 1 trait, it's just going to take that tiny bit extra work to get into a good place. And it's still very easy to get Strength and Diversity into a great place. And I think part of the strength of Strength and Diversity is that many of the allies you're going to want for it are actually just good in their own right. It's not like, oh, all these allies aren't doing anything until I find Strength and Diversity. Grant Ward can attack or fort. Vivian can blank something. She can attack. You've got little things you can do with all these characters. But let's consider Hulk. Hulk has 0 thwarting. He might as well have 0 threat removal as far as his hero cards are concerned. Strength and Diversity being a way for him to get a really nice amount of threat removal just outside of playing Justice. It's going to be really good. But more than that, it's a wild resource icon. Hulk famously needs physical resources, so Strength and Diversity is going to be absolutely phenomenal with him. On the other hand, we have Adam Warlock, who can only take 1 of each card, so only 1 copy of Strength and Diversity, but he can take, basically any ally in the game. He can build up those traits very easily, on a whole different level. He is potentially, I think, in 2-player, going to be the ideal candidate. If you're running a Strength and Diversity deck, bring along someone playing Adam, tell them to bring a bunch of allies from different traits, and if they've got a copy of Strength and Diversity, have them bring that as well. So between 2 players, you've got 4 copies of Strength and Diversity, and I think you're going to have a really good experience. Let's talk about Nick Fury, who I haven't talked about on the channel yet since his release, but spoilers, I like him. He's got 3 traits, and with Fury's Flying Car, he can get the aerial trait until the end of the round, so he can effectively provide 4 traits towards Strength and Diversity himself. But it gets even better. If you look at Nick Fury, he's got this break cover ability. When you attack, change to Assault Suit form. Strength and Diversity can deal massive damage. Doesn't count as an attack. You can just stay stealth if you want to. So, Nick Fury's hiding in the shadows, calling on his superhero friends, and they are, dealing with everything for him, and it's kind of beautiful. Next, we've got Cable and Phoenix. They each have 2 traits. Cable can gain Sonic, Phoenix can gain Aerial. A lot of characters can gain Aerial, so let's talk about that. We've got a Spider-Ham, who with Organic Webbing can actually gain Aerial a bit like Fury's Flying Car. Doctor Strange can gain Aerial with his cloak. We've been talking about cloaks and capes a lot on this channel. Check out our interview with Caleb recently if you haven't already on Shadow of the Cast. These characters are kind of strong, kind of have a lot of money, can kind of set up a board quickly if they need to, and Strength and Diversity is going to be good. Doctor Strange, in fact, kicks off a series of Avengers who have a secondary trait who can also gain Aerial by playing some kind of upgrade. We have a Vision, who's Android and Avenger, who can gain the Aerial trait. And what makes Strength and Diversity really good for him is that he can sit in intangible form. He's not allowed to attack, but Strength and Diversity, not an attack. Absolutely crazy. Then we've got Wasp, who's, Avenger and either tiny or giant. If you get her wings in play, she can be Aerial as well. That seems pretty good. And she can actually play Moon Girl, who has a Champion and Genius trait, which is also pretty good for Strength and Diversity. War Machine is up next. Avenger and Soldier can go Aerial with his upgraded chassis. Valkyrie can go Aerial with her horse, Aragon. So both of these characters lack the threat removal, and this really helps them both. Valkyrie's Nemesis really stops her attacking, which stops her basically doing anything. Strength and Diversity, not an attack, not thwarting. Absolutely insane card for Valkyrie. If for argument's sake you think Strength and Diversity is too powerful, you kind of want a bit more of a challenge, I think Valkyrie is kind of a character where you probably let yourself go a bit crazy with it, and it's going to let you really enjoy Valkyrie. And, maybe her Nemesis set doesn't have to be the end of the world in solo play. But wait, Villain Fury, you've been talking about Strength and Diversity for, 10 minutes now. What about Strength in Numbers, which is clearly where the inspiration for this name came from? Well, I gotta tell you guys, Strength in Numbers combined with Strength and Diversity is kind of good. So for Strength and Diversity, you're going to set up a good amount of allies with a good amount of traits, and then what? If I'm going to use them, block with them, I might not be able to replace them, etc., and so on. So how do I get value out of them once they're on the board, aside from Strength and Diversity? Well, rather than use them or block with them and get defeated, I can exhaust them for Strength and Numbers, draw a bunch of cards, probably find a Strength and Diversity, and that deck is just going to explode in value. I think that is going to be incredibly powerful. I already think Strength in Numbers is an extremely powerful kind of deck. I talked about the strongest decks in a recent video as well, so if you're not that familiar with it, check it out. Just unfortunately, this card does come in Captain America, and that pack is a little bit hard to find right now, to say it gently. Now, if you were worried about setting up Strength in Diversity, well, the game also has a card called Suit Up, which lets you just search your deck and discard pile for any ally. So you can get the perfect one with multiple traits, add it to your hand, and you're basically good to go. If you find Suit Up on turn 1, Strength and Diversity is also good to go from turn 1. One example I can give is Sky Cycle and Blade, because Suit Up has defined not only an ally, but also an attachment that can be attached to it. Blade, Avenger, and Vampire. Sky Cycle actually gives Blade the aerial trait, so we kind of have 3 traits here, and they're all very cheap, but you can go even cheaper than this, although you will have less total traits. You could do something like Suiting Up for Grant Ward and Clarity of Purpose. Clarity of Purpose, actually not that bad being attached to Grant Ward, but you can just attach it to yourself, and then you can generate an extra resource, and Grant Ward is somehow even cheaper than Blade. So however you want to run Strength and Diversity, because I think this is viable without Strength in Numbers or Suit Up, but definitely, Strength in Numbers, going to go crazy with it. Suit Up could be a nice kind of addition to smooth things out if you need it. I just really think Strength and Diversity stands on its own, which is kind of funny. But, just a few allies, just a couple of allies out with 2 traits each, and this card is going to be very, very good. If you get 3 allies out, maybe use Triskelion, things like that, to increase your ally limit, get even more traits out. Long story short, Strengthening Diversity's maximum potential is very, very high. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. Okay, but how is this with Falcon? How is this with the new hero? Well, I haven't forgotten. So Falcon has the Aerial and Avenger traits in hero form. His Alter Ego action lets him search for a bird card, and we have a new one because, let's face it, we basically didn't have any. New one called Hugin and Munin. I might be pronouncing that incorrectly. But it's a 2-cost ally, Aerial, Asgard, and Bird traded. So Falcon, from turn 1, can guarantee having 4 traits. We can have Aerial, Avenger, Asgard, and Bird all on the board at once, guaranteed. If we start with Suit Up and we go and grab Grant Ward and Clarity of Purpose, we can play Grant Ward, Clarity of Purpose, and Hugin and Munin in the same turn. If you start with Suit Up in hand on Falcon, you can guarantee having 6 traits down, and then as you play through the game, you're probably going to get up to at least 8, and Strength and Diversity is going to solve everything and be very, very strong. Now, the new bird ally here does, bring in a minion, and you might not want that on turn 1, but it's not a forced response, so you can just choose not to do it. Or you can choose to do it. If you don't do it, Falcon can thwart for 2, Grant Ward can thwart for 2, Hugin can thwart for 1, or, you could use them to attack. Basically, either way you split it, you've got 5 damage, 5 threat removal, or some kind of mixture, and that's pretty good to solve most of the villain setup things in most scenarios, even on Expert. There's a couple it won't, but if you do decide to use Hugin and Munin's, response, which puts in a minion, potentially you can ready up Falcon and Grant Ward, and that means you can get potentially 9 damage or 9 threat removal on turn 1 while you're setting up Strength and Diversity. I think this is very, very good. Strength and Diversity is going to be good on basically anyone, but for Falcon, I think it's really going to be quite a powerful, fun build for him. Overall thoughts about the card are it's really strong, but I am really glad it helps out, Valkyrie and Hulk in a really significant way. And I have been saying before, I've been really hopeful for some kind of card that rewards you for taking a mixture of different traits, not just build all into one trait. So I'm super, super happy with that. Did I want that card to solve all threat and damage in a super convenient way that bypasses stuns and confuse and all that stuff? I don't know if it needed to be that good, because I feel like this is really good. But of course, I haven't actually played with it yet. It's just been previewed, but it looks insane. I think in future, if they would like to explore the kind of, mixture of traits, kind of, quote unquote, archetype or style of play, I'd be curious to see, rather than having as many different traits as you can, just about having characters out that don't double up in traits. So it's more of a case of trying to have characters out that don't have overlap, but not aim for as many as possible. I think that would be kind of a fun twist. But in general, if this card does turn out to be, a little bit stronger than I would like sometimes, you can just choose not to use it, and the game goes on, you play it just however you did before. But if you do want to use it, I think it's be really fun, really flexible, and offer a really unique method of teamwork, because in this video, I haven't even gone into how you do this in, 2-player, 3-player, 4-player, with every deck dedicated to bringing lots of different traits, or at least taking it into account in deck building, even if they're not fully going into it, and potentially this could scale up, and you could get some huge thwarting and damage on demand in multiplayer. So my Falcon deep dive is on the way. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Let me know in the comments what you think. Slap a like on the video. Anything that makes YouTube happy helps out. And I'll see you in the next video.